More than 90% of youth in Malaysia have experienced climate change related effects in the last 3 years, and yet we are underrepresented in local and international decision making. Youths United for Earth, Youth, is an award winning grassroots nonprofit mobilizing youth for environmental action through storytelling, campaigns, and advocacy. Today, Youth reaches over 50,000 people monthly through spearheading campaigns and initiatives including Malaysia's first and largest youth sustainability mentorship. Youth aims to build a community of environmentally driven youth in pursuit of a just and livable future. Find out more on how you can make a positive environmental change with youth in the description below. Thank you, youth, for supporting today's episode. Welcome to Gen Z Journey. Today we have Max Han with us. Max Han is born in Malaysia in the year 2001. He studied Bachelor in Environmental Studies in Yale NUS College, and right now he's studying Master in Environmental Change and Management in University of Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. He's also the co-founder of Youth United for Earth, YUFE, Asia, and he's a Asia Pacific Youth Advisor on Environmental and Climate Justice. He's also part of the ASEAN Environmental Rights Working Group, drafting Southeast Asia first regional environmental rights declaration with policymaker, UN agencies, and the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. And he has received the Princess Diana Award, Tatler's Gen T Leader of Tomorrow, and the North American Association of Environmental Education's 30 Under 30. And he is the first Southeast Asian to be named a future Nobel laureate scholar. That is a lot of achievement, Max. And did I miss out on anything?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Yes. So, yes, let's just jump straight into the question. And first thing first, just wondering when you first studied environmental studies in NUS College, what was your plan back then?
Actually, I didn't always start out with environmental studies. I think not a lot of
Mhm.
people know this about me, but I used to be a computer science major. Yeah,
Okay.
so I started school in 2020, which is
Mm.
around the pandemic. And I think there was a lot of conversation there on tech and its role in our society. And I was always very passionate about environmental issues, and I wanted to do a technical skill that allowed me to use this technical skill to contribute to environmental causes. And so I took
Mm.
computer science. And I think it was sometime in my first year, I was coding a long assignment for like 4 to 6 hours in the library, and I suddenly realized that yeah, like this was something that felt like labor to me. Whereas at the same
Okay.
time, I was doing a lot of work with my NGO at youth, where it felt more like a labor of love and care for communities for me. And so that was like a spark to make me reflect on what I wanted to do for the rest of my university years. And so I obviously did not make that decision straight away. It took a lot of reflection, a lot more trial and error in terms of putting my efforts and time into what would an environmental career look like, what would a computer science career look like, and in the end I decided that I'm gonna stick to environmental studies and took that leap of faith. And yeah, I am very happy with what I decided to do at that time. And obviously it was not easy. I think there's always this narrative of, oh, this career makes more money, this major, this university degree will help you get more opportunities. And I think there's some merit to what's being discussed, but at least for me and what I did on my own terms back then seemed right for me. And yeah, I'm very happy with it.
I see. That is amazing. Okay, wow. So, you mentioned that that time you're working on Youth United for Earth as well. So you started that prior to your university years.
Yeah, it didn't always start as a non-profit though. We only got
Hmm.
registered maybe 1, 2 years in after we started. It
Okay.
really started as a small project, and at that time I was volunteering with coastal communities in Pulau Perhentian and Langkawi, and working with a lot of young children and locals by bringing them on biodiversity tours, and really just to learn about the local landscape that we were in and in our own local context. And so I think these two experiences really influenced me to think about localizing environmental narratives. Because we've been taught since young that, okay, climate change is happening, there's global warming, and the context in which we're taught is still very westernized. Like we thought about like polar bears and ice caps melting, but it's really happening on our soil in Malaysia. And I think my time and experiences talking to these communities reminded me of that. And so I wanted to start a small project that really focuses on localizing this and what it means for environmentalism in Malaysia. And also to involve young people. I was working with a lot of young children on this, and they were really smart. I was teaching them about plastic pollution. They were asking really interesting questions and telling me about how they would motivate their parents to also do more sustainable initiatives and also convert to more better, greener individual actions. And I remember this conversation with this 5-year-old who was talking to me and he was saying, like, oh, why is it that we are focused on plastic straws, not the whole cup? And that was like very profound, I think, and something that I frequently
Yes, I do
reference.
agree. Like something
Yeah,
that's small, but then we just never thought of.
yeah, but also what I think he's trying to say is that metaphorically, maybe intended or not intended, is that we always
Mm,
focus on individual actions rather than the whole system. And that really changed my view of how I see environmental change
mm.
and going beyond just seeing the importance of individual action, like recycling or not using plastic as much as possible if you can. And these very individual actions that do add up, but also fundamentally environmental change is also very systemic and that can create a huge amount of change as well that needs to be coupled alongside individual action. And so we started this small project to document these stories of young people working for environmental change in Malaysia, and then that led to a mentorship program and further advocacy and yeah, one thing just led to another. And now it's a formalized nonprofit with a big movement as well.
See, I see. Wow, that is really cool. How would you say like what you guys are what's the main thing that you guys are doing now in Youth United for Earth?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we started out with storytelling, but if I had to
Mhm.
put it all in like a nice catchphrase on what we're doing, Youth United for Earth, or youth, some people say youth, but it's actually
Mhm.
youth, because it sounds like
Okay.
youth, like young people, is that we are a grassroots movement or not a non-profit that is youth-led, and we aim to mobilize Malaysian youth for climate and environmental action through storytelling, campaigning, and advocacy. And essentially, we just want to get young people energized and involved in trying to make change that benefits our environment and communities in Malaysia.
I see, I see. Okay, wow, that's amazing. But yes, like, because you have a lot of experience in advocating at global platforms like UN headquarters, ASEAN, and One Young World, and how had all these experiences influenced your approach to environmental advocacy?
Yeah, I'll say I'm really grateful for these international experiences, and I think each one of them has given me a lot of clarity on my role as an environmental advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first thing to point out is that environmental advocates are all not the same and we are not homogenized. In fact, we're very heterogeneous in the sense where each of us have our own capacity of how we're contributing. So some people are
Mm-hmm.
great at project management, some people are great at public speaking, and some people are very good with the very technical policy work. And I think for me, what I find myself most suited for is, and what I really enjoy is being a bridge builder between certain local communities with decision makers. And I am typically doing stuff like that in the international experiences that I have or the advocacy that I do. And so I think these experiences really affirm that this is what I'm doing and this is how I can do it best. And it exposed me to a lot of international practices. At these spaces, there's a lot of people all over the world that gather, and I think that international community that I've built up over the years of doing this really gives me the energy to continue doing this because I meet someone from, let's say, the Philippines or someone from the US or UK and they do things completely differently, but it's also like, okay, they're also the same age as me and they're doing something similar in a sort of a same tangent that's all going to contribute to this global mosaic of environmental change. And that really inspires me to keep moving and understand that, okay, the work I'm doing here is really important in Malaysia, and the work that they're doing there is important as well. And this will all contribute to a bigger picture of driving the needle for environmental and climate change.
See, wow, okay, that is amazing. Yeah. So as someone that advises the Malaysia's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, what do you think are the biggest challenges and opportunities in shaping environmental policies? Yeah, I think like sometimes thinking about change and then implementing them might be two different things. And from your experience, yeah, what are the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. First thing I must say, I'm not the only one who's advising, and
Mm,
there's many other young people who are in a cluster who's working with our ministry to talk about climate policy and feed into the policies around environmentalism as well. So
mm,
I'm just speaking from my personal perspective as a caveat. I think
okay.
in general, policy making is typically very difficult most of the time because of the many voices that you have to answer to. You have to answer from what is feasible and cost effective within the governmental
Mm,
end. And then you also have civil society and uh, communities who are facing the brunt of many environmental issues. They're also vocal and something that you have to answer for, and someone that you should definitely answer for and also include both in process and content. And then you also have industry voices as well from the private sector. And so there's all these voices going on at the same time. And I think policymakers often have to have this difficult job of reconciling it. And typically the outcome that usually comes out is usually like a confluence of everything. And it's usually the middle ground. It's usually like the average of all these voices, which can be good, which also can be bad. But it's a very difficult challenge that is always happening in our ministry as well. And I believe another thing I notice is that there's also a lot of difficulty with inter-ministry collaboration. So
I
I'll give
see.
you an example. One thing we talk about is how young people need to participate in environmental policy making or climate action. And so then the Ministry of Youth and Sports have to work together with another ministry, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. And there's a lot of bureaucracy that you have to fight through to implement a certain initiative. And it's also a common characteristic of many governments around the world as well. And so I'll say these are the main two challenges that point out to me at the beginning. Um, Broadly speaking, in terms of opportunity for environmental policies, I think now is a really good time. Well, there's no particular good time, but I think now is a very urgent and prescient time to talk about
Yes.
climate change and climate action because
Mm.
it's happening it's happening everywhere, right?
I
We
think it's
always
very visible right now. Like it's really
Yeah,
something
it's
that we
very
can
physical. We see
see now.
flooding
Yeah.
right now in Sarawak, and in 2021, KL flooded, and I think people in urban areas may think that they are more shielded from natural disasters. And when
Mm,
we look at our neighbors, we always say, ah, Malaysia is so lucky to not experience some disasters relative to our neighbors, but
mm.
really everyone's in the same boat and we feel it to different
Yes.
degrees. And it's also important to remember that the people who feel it most is actually the most vulnerable and people who are living in poverty.
Mm,
So it's not felt on the same magnitude by everyone. And so this is a time where you really have to ramp up the ambition, not just for Malaysia, but also
mm.
everyone around the world and have to sit with that tension of policy making and sit with very difficult tasks. For example, like changing from fossil fuel to clean energy. And that's difficult. In Malaysia, we have a huge culture of like fossil fuel and petrol, and now our government's
Especially with all the incentives and all that, it's really hard to move away.
yeah, with petrol subsidies as well, and that's gonna create a lot of noise, but it's something we have to sit down and reconcile as a society and reflect upon how we're gonna move forward together and do it collectively. And it's gonna be difficult, but it's something that is needed to be done. And I see this so as what I'm trying to say is that there's no better time to do this than now,
Mm.
and this is an opportunity for many different voices to come together and sit with that tension and come up with something to move the needle forward.
Okay, wow, that is amazing. I really love that. But yes, now let's move back slightly to more of your personal life, studying, and may I know what made you decided to continue further your study in University of Oxford?
I've always wanted to go to graduate school. I really like this field of environmental studies because,
Okay.
in Malaysia we are streamed into art stream and science stream, and I think I've always been someone who's very into both, like the arts and the
Okay.
sciences and humanities, social sciences, and I feel like the environmental studies is such a interesting field where that combines all of this because there's all this technical part and parts about climate science and the science of technologies and innovation that will innovate out of this crisis. But you also have the social science part of policy and economics of how you would actually implement this, how you would get different actors to come together to do something about it. And also the humanities part of what an environmental crisis means for our culture and how we interpret it in our own terms. And so I really like environmental studies and being in a position where I'm able to try and triangulate all this and reconcile all this. And so I wanted to do more school. But
Okay.
I say that with a grain of salt because I think school can only teach you so much. And that's probably why I end up doing lots of bits and pieces of outside school work. And I see it really as work, that's really meaningful and important to me to really supplement my own learning, but also use what I learn in school to put it into action and also use what I do outside to also feed my own learning in school as well. And so I decided to, yeah, be grounded in more technical knowledge so I can do better work.
Okay, okay. How do you find University of Oxford? Like, how do you enjoy your time there? What is the biggest change that you experienced there, maybe?
Yeah, it's a lot of change.
Okay, okay, I like that. I like that.
And
That means a lot of things to learn about.
yeah, I think Oxford is a very interesting space. I think it's very
Hmm.
loaded with history. There's a lot of these scientists and great thinkers that have walked through the walls that you're and classrooms that you're sitting with. But I also think it's important to acknowledge the difficult histories of a place as well. And so
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that I love this place, or I hate it either. But I think I'm sitting I've the past term that I've been here, I always find myself sitting at the streams of the different histories that this place has. I
Hmm.
really like my department, but I also find that Oxford can be a place that is a bit more Eurocentric. A lot of what we're taught are focused on Europe, North America, the UK, which also makes sense in a way that it is situated in the UK. But I also think with the international community, you also should consider other perspectives as well and try and embed that in the diversity of thought and curriculum and the people who are delivering this education to you as well. So that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot during my time here. And secondly is really just I think what every person goes through when they move to a new country and a completely different system. I think moving to the UK can be difficult, especially for us, for Malaysians. We are used to so much sun. And now here you're
Yes.
on vitamin D pills, the sun sets at 3, 4 p.m. And I know it seems so trivial. Like, it's just sun and it's cool, but it really does affect your mood. Like,
Yes,
weather
I
is
do
a huge
agree.
thing here, and it's something that also comes out in small talk. And that was a bit hard for me, but it took me some time to adapt. I really like the international community at Oxford. I like that you can just meet very different kinds of people, and you get the best of the best and the worst of the worst of people here as well. And there's people from all disciplines. So I think it's a really interesting space where you can carve out what you want to do and what you want to think about. And it's really just a nice place for exploration and growth. There's so much happening here all the time. You really have to stay grounded.
Interesting. Yeah, like I totally agree on that weather aspect. Like always we would joke about like how the British talk about weather and then coming here it really can become a topic because
Yeah.
the weather just varies so much. It was like super windy a few days ago and then now it's a lot better. I hope it stays this way. And then yeah, like I was on vitamin D pills previously as well, but I don't know, just moved down to London. I'm feeling good now, so I stopped it. But I'm sure that soon it was maybe the next winter I'll get back to it again.
Yeah. The sun just yeah, like the sun has really set outside my window and it's only 5 p.m. now.
Yeah, it's getting better. It is
It's
getting
getting
better
better,
though.
yeah.
Yeah, it's getting
Yeah.
better. By March, with the I think daylight saving ending or starting, I'm still confused with that. And then it's gonna get a lot better. I look forward to that so much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the transition here was difficult, but it's definitely taught me a lot, right? Like
Hmm.
even it's taught me to be very present and also to lean into to the seasons changing as trivial as that sounds.
Yeah. I mean, like I also learned like it's such a small thing, but then like cause like Malaysia, we just never like the idea of season just doesn't come to us because we
Yeah.
don't really have anything. And then coming here, been living here for almost 4 years, and then it really taught me to appreciate like different seasons as well. Like, oh, now winter, it's definitely harsh, but there's beauty of it. And then now we kind of look forward to spring, summer, and then during spring, summer, you will look forward to a bit of winter and something like that. So, yeah, I guess
Yeah.
different perspective, but then like definitely, I'm glad that I was able to be here and then learn all this new interesting perspective that I'll never have if I lived in Malaysia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think moving to a different country can teach you a lot if you lean into it.
Yes. But yes, wondering what are your plans for the future? Have you have thought of this? I mean, like definitely you're doing multiple things and yeah.
I'm still figuring that out, and I think I'm okay being in the flux of everything. But I do have a
Mm,
vague idea. I definitely want to do something related to climate and environment, something that I've specialized in. And something I want to explore a bit more is how to drive change on a big scale through
mm,
policy. And I don't know exactly what kind of work that would look like, but I want to explore that. I think policy making, at least from my experiences, especially that the work that I've done with ASEAN,
mm,
it's frustrating and it's hard and it's full of tension all the time, but I can also see the reward in policy and the impact that it can bring. And
mm.
so I want to sit with that and pull on that thread a little bit more while I still
I
have
see.
my next 1 2 years here at Oxford.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, that sounds exciting to you. But yeah, like what sounds amazing is also the prestigious awards that you gotten. So like the Princess Diana Award and the future Nobel laureate scholar title. So after you have gotten those recognition, how has it impacted your career? Perhaps I'm not sure your studies or like your advocacy work.
I perceive those awards. I still struggle to sit with it sometimes. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
even though they're awarded to me, I feel like really the award stands for not just me, but a whole community of people that make up Youth United for Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I really do stand on the shoulders of people who have come before me, a lot of environmental advocates who have really paved the path for this. And so I honestly don't think too much of them. But I must say the accolades have helped with getting funding. And so I do focus on that part. Sometimes when we apply for grants and we bring in this recognition, it shows that you have a track record of implementing certain projects and that international presence as well helps connect you with other international networks that you can learn from and also contribute to. So I would say it helps in that part. In terms of advocacy work, I I do think at least there's some credibility that you get from it, but I think a lot of the credibility comes with your how much effort you put into your work and how much research and preparation you bring to policy meetings rather than these awards per se.
Okay. I see. Wow, that is amazing. I really like how humble you are. But I do agree, like sometimes in all these organization, it's definitely not one person work
Yeah.
that has gotten this award. It's like a whole community that contributed
Yeah.
to this amazing award and all this recognition. Yeah. But yes, like I believe as someone that advocate for climate justice and environmental rights, definitely, especially maybe when it comes to policy and all that, you mentioned, uh, there might be skepticism and resistance from institutions or like maybe private sector and all this. How do you address them?
That's a good question. That's something that I'm still working on. But at least from my past experiences, I always try to
Mm,
see it from their side, even though it can be very difficult.
mm,
Sometimes people say things that seem very reactionary and can make you feel very angry, especially if you feel certain, especially if you're someone who is really feeling climate change impacts very
mm,
strongly and who have lived through a lot of these harms, and you meet someone who seems to be perpetuating that harm.
mm.
But the first step I try to go towards is also empathy. And I give a more concrete example rather than
Okay.
saying this abstractly. So when we were drafting the ASEAN environmental rights framework that's currently
Mm,
in progress and being reviewed right now, there was a lot of debate and contention about what terms should go in a policy and what terms goes out. One thing we were fighting for really hard for civil society and something that I worked on very closely with my friend who and some other indigenous communities was the inclusion of indigenous people in the text for them to be recognized and for their rights to be protected. And obviously in Southeast Asia, this is a contentious issue, and we were met with a lot of skepticism and resistance and to an extent even intimidation when we raised this up. Obviously it was not easy for us, but I also tried to see it from their side and just hear them
mm,
out first. And one of the policymakers mentioned that in his country this term was a slur when their colonizers came and they used this term in the wrong way. And I academically, even in the field of anthropology as well, some people also believe that this term is colonial, even though a lot of indigenous communities themselves are reclaiming this term, and even though in international policy this term is not a narrow definition, but really more like an umbrella term that
mm.
that includes very diverse kinds of indigenous people all around the world, right? Even in Southeast Asia. And so that lend some perspective to the way we're advocating for things. And so trying to see it from their side, but also trying to justify your side with evidence is really important. And that has helped me and my friends who also, even though we were very upset from this pushback, to push for the agenda and keep fighting forward as well. I think sometimes it's a very tricky balance, right? Sometimes you have to listen and compromise, but there are also some things that you really cannot compromise on. Like, would
Yes,
you
like,
compromise on your right to drink clean water or breathe clean air? Right? These are
yeah.
a
Mm.
lot of things that you discuss and you see that's being in motion and decided upon on governmental level. The good news is also that it's not black and white, and that helps with the way you react to certain things and also the way you see some things and advocate for some things. But it's a very fine line you're treading all the time.
Yes, I totally get what you mean. I think I was learning this from therapy as well, because like I think personally, like there are things that we would love to change and improve on and all that, but of course by sometimes learning to maybe let's say yeah be empathetic and then listen to other people, we need to make sure that we are not stripping of our own like making people enabling people to treat us unfairly and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's always not an easy thing. Like recognizing that okay, we need to listen, we need to have compromise, but also like not losing our own power and then putting us in any harms and all that.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think the
yeah.
phrase that I like is being soft but steely. So
Oh,
being soft in a sense
beautiful.
where you are empathetic and you hear people out, and you also try and understand the context in which they operate, but also
Mm,
steely in the sense where you know what is the right time to be assertive and set boundaries, and also do it in a way that is with grace.
I see. I see. Wow, that is amazing. I love that phrase. Definitely that will come out as one of the highlights. Yeah. But yes, like wondering, like doing all these things right now you're studying full time, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like how do you manage all this various responsibility while hopefully maintaining a healthy lifestyle.
It's difficult, I would say, especially after moving to the UK. My heart
Mm,
is obviously still in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. A lot of
mm,
my work here at Oxford is actually informing the work that I do back home, and it's
mhm,
always within that context because I have very strong roots in Malaysia and a lot of the work I have in Southeast Asia. So it's definitely been a bit difficult to manage everything. I do have to wake up earlier, like sometimes at 6, 7 a.m. to take calls or just get some work done before class at 9. But I can do it because number one, I'm not doing it alone. And that has always been the case for a lot of my environmental advocacy work. I am not just one individual who's doing something. I always do it with a team. I have a really great co-founder, Fatin, who runs youth with me. And so we kind of spread out the work together. We also hold each other accountable and we're also there for each other. Like when life happens, we step in to take the load. And I also have besides Fatin, a big group of volunteers and team that really keep our work running and make the movement more sustainable. And I think really that is quite a like community is quite fundamental to any endeavor or social movement that you're trying to move off. A friend put this very nicely, which is that I think she talked about social movements in a form of a choir,
mm.
that everyone is singing the same note. And in doing so, that gives permission for some members to step out and take a breath. But even when they step out, the note will still go on. And so the parable of the choir is such that the movement will keep going on and on and on while everyone takes breaks and come back in. I think that's important as well to take breaks. Secondly, I really try to get the basics, which is 8 hours of sleep, exercise, learning when to say no, and learning when to say yes is also important. I am making it very intentional to take care of myself this year and
Okay.
not experience burnout and try to do it sustainably.
I see, I see. Yeah, I think like it's also recently that I learned that learning how to say no is
Mm.
very important because sometimes we really have only 24 hours. Like I think this part is very fair for everyone. Everyone only has 24 hours and then we can't just like taking all the requests or like meeting all the people whenever they want to meet, and then yeah, we have to be really intentional with the time that we're spending and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also being realistic, I think.
Mm,
Sometimes school has to give, sometimes your work has to give. You have to be ready to expect that. And also, when you're doing things with other people, you have to be fair to them and communicate that to other people. So,
yes.
yeah, I think it's really about being intentional with your time and also seeking help on doing it with the community and also being
Mm.
realistic about what you can really do and not just perpetuate this go, 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 hustle culture. There's a lot of ways of doing things, and I think different things work for different people. But what's
Mm.
important is you what works for you on your own term. You have to figure that out and stick to it.
Beautiful. But just now you mentioned burnout. I believe you have experienced that. Can you share about how did you overcome your worst burnout ever?
My I think burnout is very common for everyone.
Mm.
Actually, when I experience burnout, I always go back to the basics. I always think back to what I really liked as a kid and what brings me joy.
Oh.
And and I we always talk about our inner child, and I know this sounds a bit cheesy, but when I burn out, I try to remember what my inner child needs. And I will
Mm.
tell myself, okay, Max, what do you really need? And I'll do it for you. I'll step in and do it for you. You need a nap? Let's take a nap. And I know my inner child loves reading. My inner child
Oh.
loves being quiet and like really just sitting with silence and enjoying the silence. My inner child loves being in nature and green spaces because I grew up around a lot of green spaces. And so, yeah, I try to just work these things into my time and my schedule and also to connect with people that I really love. People that don't take energy away from me, but either sit with me in my energy and just give me energy. I think it's are very basic things that sound so fundamental, but it's actually very hard to practice. And
Yes.
one thing to keep in mind is that when you're burnt out, you need to reflect on how you cannot perpetuate this cycle again. because if you
Mm.
keep burning out, it's really unfair for your on yourself and to the people around
Yes.
you. Like when you burn
Mm.
out, you take 1 month break. But realistically, life is such that you don't always have the opportunity to take 1 month break. So you got to like factor this in consistently so your breaks can be a bit more spread out and distributed.
Yes. I totally get what you mean. I think, yeah, I've gotten a few terrible burnouts as well, and right now, I think I'm happy that I can start noticing the signs, and then whenever that happen, I will start giving my like be more lenient with myself, and then like, okay, maybe we need to take more breaks, and kind of witnessing, and then maybe make more plans to make sure that the goals are clearer and all that, understanding that some tasks have to be delegated and all that. But
Yeah.
I really love how you deal with your burnout by like really listen to your inner child. I think that's something that I should check out. I should really test out as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what you said about listening to signs because
Mm.
I think there's a gift to having the worst burnout ever because it's a benchmark. And every time you feel like you have certain signs, you really need to be aware, like, okay, I've been here before. This is not
Yes.
worth it. I need to, I'm spiraling here. I need to
Mm.
have all hands on deck and try and just stop here for a moment and just literally breathe. So I think
Yes.
there's a gift in all these rock bottoms, right? Because
Yes,
you
exactly.
often spot the signs as well. And I
Mm.
definitely have that as well. I think everyone
Mm.
does. It's a very human thing. And I'm also very, and I think it helps us become more compassionate to other people when they do it as well.
Yes, yes. Like, cause like now we can understand yeah, everyone goes through tough times, and then like
Yeah.
yeah, we shouldn't just like um judge them for this particular moment and all that. Yeah. But yeah, just wondering, do you have any guilty pleasure that you indulge into, let's say like after a long week? Like perhaps like this week you mentioned that it's quite a tough one.
Yeah. I don't really have guilty pleasures. I just have
Okay.
pleasures.
Okay, that's good, that's good.
I
Yeah.
really like to cook.
Mm.
I always encounter a lot of people here who eat out a lot or just eat in their college halls. We have this many
Mm.
colleges in Oxford. And they
I'm
always
not sure
say
about the food
you
in Oxford College, but
yeah,
at
this
least in my college last time it was terrible.
yeah, there's I mixed reviews on that. But people always say that cooking is like a net negative because it takes up so much time. That's
Mm.
fair. It does take up time. But for me, I see it as a net positive because there's
Mm.
something very therapeutic about chopping vegetables and knowing what goes in your body and being very intentional with that. And
Yes.
also like
Mm.
reminding yourself of what matters. For me, I used to cook with I always grew up cooking with my grandma. And cooking for me is like a love language for myself and also a love language for my friends. And so I always spend a lot of time every day cooking, or not every day,
Mm.
but when I can to just really cook and do something for me and myself and for other people. So I think
I
that's
see.
a pleasure, not really a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Like I personally do enjoy that as well. And then right now, yeah, I've been starting to cook less because of the
Yeah.
piling works that I have. But definitely, I hope that like I really like the concept of having an apron, and then like you just like that you can fully indulge in that process of cooking. You're not in a rush. You're not just cooking so that you have the food to feed yourself, but really enjoying the whole process. Like
Yeah.
slowly tasting the thing, and then like maybe presenting it nicely after that, and then really indulging in whatever you have cooked. Like it's like feeling the what do we call that, the the creation that you have made.
Yeah. I have a wok. I call it my prized possession. I actually brought it from
Ooh,
Malaysia.
wow, okay,
Yeah, so
okay,
I really like
that's really precious, yeah.
yeah, I really love cooking and try to replicate the wok here as best as I can here.
Wow.
But I love cooking and I think yeah, yeah, I would say that's my main pleasure during my time here.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, now let's switch back to a bit of the environmental side of thing. So definitely you have so much experience uh in like environmental uh I'm not sure how do we call it, environmental studies and environmental change and management. So what would you mm, what would you say that is the most pressing environmental issue that's facing Southeast Asia today, and how
Mm.
can young people contribute to solving it?
A lot of the work I do in Southeast Asia is is in regards to environmental rights and
Mm,
environmental democracy. And so I'll say that's one of the big pressing issues that is facing Southeast Asia, which is environmental
mm,
democracy. Really like how you can have your voice in shaping the environmental decisions that affect you. In Southeast
mm.
Asia, we always have this narrative of economic growth and economic development, but also at the expense of our environment. And it's a difficult
Yes.
tension to sit with because we as a region, we're pretty significant in the world actually. We have around about 609 million people. That's like almost
Mm,
9% of our world's population. And Malaysia itself is one of the 17 mega diverse countries in the world. So we have a lot of biodiversity. We even have trees older than the Congo and the Amazon. And so we have all these natural resources here, and you have this tension with development,
mhm,
and decisions are being made so fast that not necessarily considers the voices of those who are most affected. And so that's really what is environmental democracy, the ability of you as a public citizen or the communities who are affected to have your say in the way things are being run and to have a safe space
mm,
to do that. And that needs to be addressed, and that's what we're trying to do with the ASEAN Environmental Rights Declaration, which would recognize the right of citizens in and peoples of ASEAN in that you have a right to clean air, right? You have the right to a safe, healthy environment, right? We grew up with so much haze that, and this shouldn't be the norm
yes.
for the generations to come. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
to answer
Like
your
it's
question,
so funny that it became there's a hay season thing which is not supposed to happen and all.
yeah, but we shouldn't normalize it. It's not okay
Yes,
to,
exactly.
not have school for 2 weeks for young children. And
Mm,
also to keep breathing in the haze. A lot of my friends
mm,
also have asthma. I personally developed asthma from the haze, right? So we need to be able to have our voices heard when it comes to issues like this and how and have a say in how we want our region to develop as well. And this doesn't mean
mm,
I'm anti-development or anti-economic growth. I just am calling for caution in what our North Star is. Is it just
mm,
endless economic growth at the expense of our natural resources? Do we value these resources the way that, you know, generations of indigenous people and Southeast Asians have been valuing these resources spiritually and meaningfully, right?
mm,
To answer your question on how young people can contribute to solving it, I believe this generation is a generation that is very serious about climate action and change. And we are very itchy in trying to do something about it, and we're very eager.
mm,
We don't always have the answers, but we definitely have that drive to do something about it. And the first step to doing something about making a better, more environmentally democratic Southeast Asia is to
mm,
be a concerned public citizen and to know your rights and to know how you can channel this as well. Actually, there are many ways to voice out your concerns to government. For example, there's the channels of environmental impact assessments. So before any project is built, you have to do this environmental impact assessment. That is not always perfect, but there are spaces for public consultation. You can get your voice heard there. Or you can work with an NGO that actively tries and gets these voices heard and empower citizens to do so. Or even as the way young people do it is to really talk about it on social media and bring up these conversations in amongst their circles and just do things together rather than just one person. So there are many, many ways to do it, but fundamentally the idea what I'm trying to say is that young people need to be aware and equipped to hold our leaders accountable, and
mm.
we really have more power than we think we do have. Young people in Malaysia is about 30% of the population. We are literally voting the people we want into power, and so we need to be informed as well.
Okay, that is amazing. Yeah, that's very true. All right. Let's say for any young person that wants to take a leadership role in environmental action, where should they start?
I'll say the first step is to find your environmental slash climate ikigai, which
Mm,
is trying to figure out what skills you have and what skills you want to offer and how that fits into the wider tapestry of environmental movements.
mm,
So what I'm trying to say is that not everyone who's an environmentalist is like a tree hugger or like a conservationist who goes to hutan and jungle and does research. It's more varied than that, right? Some of
Mm,
our members at youth are like architects and they're doing the designs that and posters and reports that we're doing. Some are really good at writing, and so you use that writing abilities of yours to inform people, to call for change, to write templates that people can use to call for change. So there's
mm,
many ways to contribute. You have to know it and do that reflection and see how you can contribute. And the second I
mhm,
would say is to really explore the local NGOs around you and all your local communities. Not everyone has to be a leader in a conventional sense of like charging something and leading and starting something out. Sometimes it's really just worth seeing what's out there and contributing to the movement so you can utilize the resources that have been allocated there as well. And also just be kind to yourself. There's no perfect environmental advocate or activist. There shouldn't be. Everyone's still figuring themselves out. And you should hold space for yourself and other people around you who's still figuring that out yourself. But what's important is that you show up and you do and you just keep showing up again and again.
that is beautiful. Wow, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing like all this experience that you have. But now going back to you, just wondering like, what is your pursuit in life? Or are you still in the midst of figuring that out?
Still in the midst of figuring that out. But I really want to be able to serve. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm looking a bit more towards public service, policy, um, environmental management, change. Yeah, I want to be able to make an impact on other people's lives and to be selfless in that pursuit to the best of my ability. But obviously, impact is varied. I'm still figuring out what kind of impact I want to make on and on
Mm-hmm.
what terms. Yeah,
I see.
and I think there's many ways of
Okay.
doing it. There's no one linear path to it. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting with that flux of figuring it out, and I'm figuring it
Yeah.
out through talking to people, a lot of internal reflection and reading.
I totally get what you mean. Like just like what you said just now. Like there's definitely many ways to contribute. Like being a leader in environmental action and all this. And yeah, even like,
Yeah,
I think for these past few years, I've been. I mean, I studied computer science like you as well, and then like it was after 2 years of work that I realized that oh my god, it's really not my thing. So like the job that I'm starting next week is actually joining a startup just as a generalist, giving me as exposure to everything, and then hopefully it's something that I'll enjoy, or maybe I'll figure out something that I truly enjoy.
yeah. I feel like it keeps changing. I wanted to be a
Mm,
teacher when I was younger because I really love kids and I think the idea of education is beautiful. And
mm,
then I wanted to do something CS related. And then I'm an environmentalist now. But I'm also an environmentalist that's exploring a lot of policy, which is so funny because
mm.
previously I thought, okay, I'll never do policy. Like I'm not those MUN, international relations kind of people.
Okay.
But doing the work has made me realize how important policy is and to be able to
Mm,
have this represented in policy. And that kind of led me to go down a bit more of a policy route. But
mm,
yeah, I feel like it's constantly changing. I think what you said is important as well, like being a generalist and being a polymath. I
mm,
think who I want to be, I don't know what my pursuit is, but at least who I want to
mm.
be is like a dragonfly, like someone who
Oh,
has 1,000 perspectives of many different things and disciplines, but is able to see it all in one eye and reconcile that. Yeah, I think
I
that's
see. That's beautiful. I like it the way you frame it, and then wow. Yeah. But yes, well, thank you for sharing about that, and then it's very interesting. Definitely, I think I think how would I say it? I think the society, or like maybe um like the default path has always taught us that oh, we have to know what we want to do and all that, but in fact like everyone is actually, even though when they're on the default path, they think that they have the right path or whatever, many people are still confused because
Mm.
I think it's okay, people change and all this. It's totally normal to change, and then we should really normalize that. We should normally normalize that people should just go out and explore and just figure things out, and then it's totally okay to change from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess family pressures in our society also does not make it any easier.
Easier.
But I agree with you. I think what I've come to realize about finding your passion, sometimes it's really not about sitting there and thinking what do I like, what do I not like. But also sometimes it's about doing and prototyping your way into it
Yes.
and I try to fundamentally live a life of little regret. Like I could I could have gone down the CS route, and I probably could have been happy as well. And I'm doing this very alternative path, and I'm also
Mm,
happy. But what matters is that I'm sitting with the weight of that decision as an adult and
mm,
being accountable to that, and sitting what that means for me. I think that's kind of the way I'm seeing it as well. I'm trying not to get too high strung about every single decision that I make, and just rather than like,
mm,
okay, this decision A, this decision B, there's not necessarily always a wrong decision. It's just like, can you live with that decision?
mm. I like that. Okay, I like that. I think leaving my previous job also because of this, starting this podcast was also because of this. And I'm glad to have started and now being able to chat with amazing people like you and all the other people. And so yeah, I think like also like because of my mom's passing last year, so it also let me reflected on like how important it is to actually
Mm.
live a life that's not filled with regrets, like as long as it's not something, it's not compromising anything of you should really just do it, just so that you would not regret it for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's also being
Yeah.
content with the small things in life. Family
Yes.
and all this are really important too.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is absolutely true. Yeah. But yes, wondering what is your recent biggest struggle?
I think my recent struggle is really what I've been talking about, being
Hmm?
present,
Oh.
which let me explain a bit more. I think being in a space like Oxford
Hmm.
is pretty high strung, right? Like everyone is overachieving, everyone wants to be someone and do something, and that kind of environment can really affect you sometimes. And then the workload that I have here is also no joke.
Oh
It's
no.
it's a lot. It's a lot of things I have to
It's
read, a lot of
Oxford.
things I have to do and think about, and yeah. And then there's also my outside schoolwork. And so with
Mm,
all these factors all flying in the air, I find it very hard sometimes to be present and not think
mm,
about what's next, or what's the next deadline, what's the thing they have to do. And but I'm working on it. I am taking the advice that I've been giving, trying to say no to things and also doing things on my own terms and being okay and living with that decision that I make. And yeah, just trying to be present and like right now I'm here and enjoying the moment of this podcast and just
mm,
really using this as time of reflection and also just talking to you and not thinking about
okay.
anything else and just being present. It's really as simple as that. And
Mm.
yeah, even as
But it is hard to do. Like it's
it's really hard to
very simple
do.
to say, but it's really hard to implement.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
But I'm trying to do that, and I think that's something that has a lot of value to be discovered.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I just moved down to London last year, September, and then London is fast paced and all this, which is something I like. But at the same time, sometimes it is very important to just
Yeah.
slow down and reflect. It's like so funny because I did my first digital detox retreat
Yeah.
for my annual planning year end last year. And then that was really good. But then straight after that, life just got so hectic again, like whoo, all the way up that like all my it's good that I have my annual planning, my whole resolution all planned, but they're still all on paper. And then I still haven't have time to I want to put it digitally so that it's like easily accessed and all that. I still haven't had time to do that. And yeah, I think because like next week I'm starting work, I'm hoping that like for this weekend I'll be able to do that. So I'll just like put it down, like all this 2024 backlog should be all done. Yeah. Life sometimes just get into the way.
Yeah. And
Mm,
everyone's always constantly going through something as well. It's a lot.
yes. 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 But yeah, on the opposite spectrum, what is the one thing that you love about yourself?
I always do my best to show up for things and to show up for people.
Mm.
And that's one of my resolutions this year, I think. My friend my friend told me I really appreciate well, it was very random. My friend wished me Happy New Year and said, I really appreciate how you make me feel seen. And I felt like that was a very nice compliment that I got. It's one of my favorite compliments. And so I told myself, okay, this year one of my resolutions is to make people feel seen, whatever that
Mm.
means, and do that a bit
Mm.
more. And just, yeah, put more effort with people.
Oh, well, that is beautiful, and that is a very simple sentence that has so much meaning in it. Like by hearing it, it's like it's such a wow thing to hear that. Yeah, but wow, that is very true. And well, I love that you put that down. I think definitely something that I should do more. I think I also recently realized that I think I've been too intentional sometimes in certain like when meeting friends and all that kind of stuff that we are just not yeah, not being present and then not really fully just enjoying that moment and then just like doing what we want. Like let's say meeting up a friend, it's just like okay, catching up done already. 2 hours up, I have to go and all that, but then not really
Yeah,
like fully like experience that. Like yeah, like being there for them and all that.
yeah. Actually, I've really been thinking about this a lot. I mean, you asked me about some of these awards, and actually, in
Mm,
December I was in Stockholm during Nobel Week, and we I feel like I've been going back to this idea of being present for quite a bit, and
mm.
I'll explain in a bit how this links
Okay.
to the Nobel laureates. I've noticed that a lot of them are actually polymaths. If you go to the Nobel Prize
Okay.
Museum, when you win a Nobel Prize, you donate a personal item of yours to the museum, and
Okay.
you will see like this crazy assortment of stuff like a laundry detergent bottle, like gloves for hiking.
Okay.
And what I've come to realize is that, as great and passionate as Nobel laureates are, a lot of them have many other like so-called irrelevant activities. But it's but they're very present in doing them. Like the winner for the Nobel Prize for Literature, Han Kang, donated this like tea set and like I think a teacup and a
Okay.
handwritten note about her morning routine and how she would take long walks and just sip tea. And it's very mundane,
Mm,
but I think there's a lot of wisdom in these other pursuits and the ability to be present in them that sparks like creativity and inspiration in your other endeavors. And that's how
mm,
actually a lot of Nobel laureates get their ideas, like being present in a lecture they're attending, you spark something, or like
mm,
being present in the way that you dress and seeing how these patterns of your tie looks like a structure of an atom.
mm,
I think there's a lot of I think that experience has actually reminded me again of like being present.
mm.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you do. I believe, like you do enjoy cooking. I think that could be one of the your most mundane pleasure, but it's like it is definitely something that makes you present.
yeah, and I also think like it links in my work because
Mm,
when you are cooking, you're also intentional about your food and you also ask where this food comes from. You always go to a
mm,
supermarket and buy food and you don't think about it too much and how these food items are being made and who are the people who behind these foods.
mm.
But when you connect with these small things, you also do think about that a bit more. And yeah.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yes. Maybe one day if you're really a Nobel laureate and then you have your walk there presented there and then that will be actually a amazing sight to see. Yeah, but yes. So you've been through so much. I think like your study and your career. Was that a significant failure or low point that shaped you to be who you are today?
Mm. Yes,
Mm,
I believe it was during school before
okay.
university, and I put a lot of pressure on myself and was in a
Mm,
very strong pressure cooker environment to do very well in school, and I used to tie a lot of my self-worth to what I can produce in terms of like grades or outcomes. And
Mm.
that made me feel very dysregulated often.
Mm.
And now I feel like a few years later down the road and growing up a little bit more and being like a leaning into my adulthood, I feel that my definitions of success have and my self-worth has really changed quite a bit. I don't
Mm.
really tie my worth to the things that I do anymore. Something that I'm working that was a problem for me was being a workaholic. And and I think there's two sides of the argument. We
Mm.
always talk about work-life balance,
Mm.
but I also have this mindset that I'm in my 20s and I'm full of
Mm.
energy. There's so many things that I want to
We
do
should
and
try to
see.
achieve as much as possible, is it?
Not really achieve, but
Yeah.
to put this all this energy and health to something, right? To
Mm.
let it like to use and I think there's value in that we're young, we're ready to work. But also I also see the other side of the argument that we need to rest and also do other pursuits that matter to us. And again, I think
Mm.
there's no one straight answer. But at least for myself, I used to be a workaholic and I realized I have this unhealthy relationship with work that I would tie a lot of my abilities and my self-worth to to what I can produce and do. And I think it's
Mm.
a common feature in our society for many people as well. Maybe the way we were brought up and the systems that we were
Mm.
in.
Mm.
But what really helped me move past that was really taking a break, like and being and sitting back and first of all nailing down the problem, like what is this relationship that I have with work? Why is it that I only feel good when something happens a certain way, or why is it when I feel bad when something doesn't happen a certain way? And I realized that, and I shifted my perspective of rather trying to achieve and looking at what other people are doing all the time, to really focusing on doing my best and just showing up on my own terms. That doesn't mean I'm being lazy. I don't think being lazy is necessarily my nature, but really like showing up and some days it's giving my 100% looks like this. Some days my 100% is a higher bar, but I still
Mm.
show up and
Okay.
do whatever that looks like. And I think that has helped me sustainably move through a lot of periods of hard work and do it in a way that's also gritty but also sustainable.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I think I can totally resonate with that. Like, there's a many. I think I coming down to London, I'll try to like join as many events as possible. You know, just be there, meet people, and then like see whatever I can learn. And then definitely, well, it's winter, it's nighttime, it's cold and all that. You're comfy in your room and all that. Just like, do we have to go? You know, like the event is free. I just registered. You know, I can just not go and all that. But then I think, yeah, just showing up is really good. Like sometimes just be there. You know, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to
Mm,
socialize. You can just be there. You know, just to see how it is, and then you can leave after that. But
yeah,
usually you wouldn't regret that whole experience. Like
yeah,
you would like, gain something out of it, even if you don't perform as well as you think you are. You still gain something out of it. Yeah, which
mm,
is amazing. Yeah, I think show by just showing up, you can do a lot of things, and then that is good enough.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think like this is one phrase that I learned. I think this will be the phrase that I love the most last year. I don't know where I got it or I just thought of it myself. So, but sometimes we always try to like how you said, we tie our self-worth to like what the outcome we have, and then we always seek for perfection and all this. And then I have learned to appreciate when things are good enough. And the phrase that I'll use is that, like, of course, like, this is not ideal, but it's good enough.
yeah,
Like, there's always this ideal outcome that we want and all that. But then, like, you know, like for example, like I'm actually right now training for Boston Marathon, which is quite tough. I'm training to qualify for it, and the qualification race for me will be on April, and then I'm still not sure whether I'll get it. But I think like looking at the progress that I've made and all that, even if I didn't get into it, it's definitely not ideal. I will have to do the same thing again for another year. But now at least I have made so much progress and I am closer to it. And is that getting into that Boston thing, that's super important. It is good, but then like at least I have done so much that I never thought I would have done if I did not sign up for this training. So yeah, it's good enough. It's still a good achievement to be celebrated and all that.
Yeah, I think I really like that example. And it reminds me of like a recent experience I've had
Okay.
where I was still moving into Oxford at that time and
Okay.
feeling very stressed by this high strung environment. And I remember talking to my friend about this and I was saying like, everyone here is so smart and when it comes to the time when I have to apply for jobs, I'm a little bit
Mm-hmm.
worried that I don't have, let's say, a certain skill that some of these people have all the time and that comes
Mm-hmm.
so naturally to them. And I worry that I'm not good enough. And then my friend was like, "Whoa, hold up." She was like, "That worldview can be problem." She caught me up with love, and she was saying like, "Max, the worldview can be problematic." Like she was saying, you know, just because you don't have a certain skill does not mean you're not good enough. By that, and she asked
Mm-hmm.
me what skill I mean, and what I mean by skills, and I was saying like, okay, you go for jobs, you have this XYZ skills, and she's saying, okay, so if does that mean that anyone who does not have those skills are useless? Does that mean
Mm-hmm.
the pakcik who sells nasi lemak across the street have no value to offer and skills? And that was that was like a reminder that a lot of our worth is not really not necessarily always in the things that we do or the skills that we have.
Yes.
It's really in who we are as people and how we
Mm-hmm.
live our life and treat people. And and that was like a important reminder, I wouldn't say lesson, but a reminder of what I believe in and
Yes,
how
I
to
think
stay grounded through that.
that is true. Sometimes I guess it's the environment also, like not to say that the environment is wrong, but just within that environment, we suddenly stop noticing some things that we actually still have, some things that we are still valuable of, and then we just get too caught up of all these other things, and then we get so worried about that. Yeah, so sometimes, yeah, being present and then reflecting and then realizing that yeah, we are actually not that bad is very important, and then like yeah, we're really quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that everyone has like some value to offer to the world.
Exactly, exactly. Yes. But yes, now we're quickly getting to the end of the podcast, and then there's always this one big question, which is what's one question have I not asked or have you not asked that you think everyone should ask? So it could be a question from that I should ask you or a question for me.
I always like this question, what are you
Okay.
grateful for?
Oh, oh,
Or
this
like, what brings you joy? Because
what
then I think
brings me
it
joy.
primes someone to think about what makes them happy, and even if they're
Mm-hmm.
sad, it makes them a bit happier in that moment.
Mm. Well, this is slightly easier for me because I have this habit of doing journaling and daily review, so I kind of jot down my whatever I'm grateful of. But I think overall, overall recently I've learned that I like to have deep conversations. This is a very funny realization that I realized after starting this podcast. I just love having deep conversations with the right people and
Mm.
then learning from them and all this. Because I am not an extrovert at all. Yeah, I really enjoy my personal time, quiet time. You can just throw me in a room. I can spend like few days there, just having things to do constantly and then not meeting anyone. Yeah, but then I I started this podcast and then I realized like, oh, it is actually really enjoying just speaking to people and then always speaking to different people, learning so many different things. Like today, I learned so much about things about environmental actions and then also about Oxford. Yeah, and then recently I only like I feel I can resonate more with how tense Oxford is because I am dating someone that is from LSE, which is also very tense, and I firsthand see how scary it is. Like, wow, okay, like this is how like studying with overachievers are like and all that. So I think like yeah, I think just having deep conversations and then just being present during that conversation, listening, understanding. This is something I'm grateful for. And then I also realized, yeah, how happy I get for each conversation. Like all these conversations brings me joy because I always see how happy I am when I was editing and all that. Yeah, recently I because my intern is editing that, so I stopped noticing that. But yeah, I always like thank my podcast guests because you are part of what makes me happy.
Oh, thanks. That is very
Yeah, yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, yeah, there's a thousand things I'm grateful for. But then like this is one big thing I'll say. Yeah, that I'm really grateful for. Yeah, having this opportunity to continuing this podcast and then always chat to different guests. Yeah.
Thank you. I really like chatting with you too. It was a very interesting conversation and a good point for reflection as well, and just to
Yes.
learn about you as well.
Yeah. I'm very glad that you enjoyed. But yes, now always at the end we will ask for a movie recommendation and a book recommendation from each of our guests. You don't have so like when I say recommendation, it doesn't have to be like, oh, for the audience. It could be just like something that you really like and that you would
Mm.
love to share. Yeah, because I think that is more important because it reflects who you are as well.
Hmm. This is a good question. I like this one because
Mm.
I do love film and books. I'm very nerdy
Nice.
in that front.
And
I
then I take this opportunity to steal all these ideas and then I can have things to watch myself and read myself after this.
well, I haven't had time to
Mm.
read as much recently, but there's a book by my one of my professors, my past
Ooh.
professors, called Burning Earth, and it's like the environmental history of let me look it up
It's called
for the full
Burning
name,
Earth.
but it's The Burning Earth: A History, which is this
Okay.
environmental history of the different ways that we've had with nature and the environment.
Hmm.
In terms of film, I really like this Thai film. You probably heard about it, How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies.
Oh, that one.
I
Okay,
really liked
okay.
it.
Mm.
It was very sad, but it
Mm.
also reminds me of family. I like those movies who do a lot with very little and and keep
It's a
you
very simple story, but it
yeah.
highlights many things and then it shows the reality lah, and it's really easy to resonate. Like all these things are actually quite true. Yeah.
Yeah, at least
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm someone who's very connected to family and friendships and
Mm.
relationships. I think those are important to me, and the movie really captures the nuances of this as well, and really about making another person feel seen in a genuine and meaningful way. I mean, I don't want to spoil
Yeah,
the
yeah.
well, if I
Yeah.
don't, but you should definitely watch it. It
Mm.
was very sad and it was very thoughtful and
Mm.
very
Yeah,
special.
I watched it and then I yeah, really loved it. Like it yeah, yeah, can't spoil much, but it kind of shows the reality of life, and yeah, don't know. It's something that I guess many perhaps more focus on like Asian culture. You can
Yeah.
really relate to it. Like, oh, this is actually a very true thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's very special
simple but
because
true movie.
we are high context cultures and I think
Mm.
a film that captures like high context in very little words and moves and
That
shots
is
are very special. Yeah.
that is very true. I like that part. Of it. High context culture. Yeah, that is amazing. That is like a very sophisticated phrase, but then like yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much for your movie and book recommendation. Definitely, I'll put them in put them in as posts to share with our audience as well. But yes, thank you so much for joining this podcast. Let's say the if the audience would like to get in touch with you or like learn more about Youth United for Earth or anything work that you have done, what would be the best way to reach out?
They can go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
yufemy.com, so youthmalaysiamy.com,
Mm-hmm.
and see some of the work we've done. They can DM us on Instagram, yufemy, that's our Instagram handle.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also reach me through LinkedIn.
I see. Beautiful. Okay, we'll put all these links down in the description below so any audience that are interested can definitely check it out. So yes, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast and sharing all your experience and about yourself. I really enjoyed this whole conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Andrew.
If you enjoyed the podcast, I would really appreciate if you leave us a 5-star review and follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Thanks again for listening to Gen Z Journey. We'll see you again next week. Remember to subscribe to get notified as new episodes come out every Thursday, and please share this podcast to anyone you think would enjoy it. This is Andrew Kwan from Gen Z Journey.